Support for WNYC comes from Apple TV Plus, presenting Slow Horses, starring Gary Oldman, Kristen Scott Thomas, and Jonathan Pryce, a darkly comedic espionage drama that follows a team of MI5 agents. More at fyc.appletvplus.com.
Moving is a big stress, but it doesn't have to be. On the next All of It, hear tips to help your New York City move go smoothly with insights from the home care website, The Spruce. And for making the most of city life after you move here, Gothamist co-founder Jake Dobkin, author of the book Ask a Native New Yorker, will be here to take your calls. Plus, author Rachel Kong talks about her new family drama novel, Real Americans. Join us for All of It, weekdays at noon on WNYC.
It's 6:51 and you're listening to Morning Edition. Later, Memorial Day is over, so it's time to break out your summer whites, or is it? Do the old rules about when to wear white even still apply? And what's the story behind these clothing conventions anyway? More of that in about 15 minutes. I'm laughing because I avoid wearing white after Labor Day because of those conventions. So I really want to hear what this story has to say. 66 and sunny right now. Sunny and 83 for a high today. And then tomorrow, chance of afternoon showers and thunderstorms, increasing clouds, and 78. Once again, 66 and sunny in the city. It's 6:52.
When carbon offsets are a little off.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. Schwab offers investors choices like full-service wealth management, self-directed investing options, and trading on Think or Swim. More at schwab.com. And by Amazon Business, helping provide a smarter, easier way to get the supplies businesses need to thrive. Amazon Business, your partner for smart business buying.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for David Brancaccio. When a company or a person causes CO2 emissions, they can offset that by buying carbon credits, paying someone else to reduce CO2 emissions. But it's hard to tell sometimes whether credits are legit or not. To deal with that problem, the White House is introducing a set of carbon credit standards to help people figure out if carbon offsets are indeed offsetting. Marketplace's Nova Safo has more.
The Biden administration is offering a set of voluntary principles, as it calls them, for establishing legitimate carbon credit markets. For example, the administration wants to standardize the idea that one credit corresponds to 1 ton of carbon dioxide or its equivalent reduced or removed from the atmosphere, and that absent that credit, the reduction or removal would not have happened on its own. The White House says independent observers should be able to measure the impacts. Carbon credit schemes have come under criticism for making lofty claims which can't be backed up with measurable results. There are certification organizations, but they've faced questions about their effectiveness. The White House says companies should first clean up as much of their own emissions as possible before relying on credits. I'm Nova Safo for Marketplace.
All right, let's do the numbers. The FTSE in London is down 0.2%. S&P futures are up 0.1%. NASDAQ futures up 0.3%. Dow futures down less than 0.1%. And the yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.464%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Bitwarden, the password manager used by millions for streamlined password management at home and at work. Learn more about stress-free security at bitwarden.com. And by Million Bazillion, a podcast from Marketplace that makes it fun and easy for parents to teach their kids about money. Listen to Million Bazillion wherever you get your podcasts.
An Israeli airstrike late Sunday night started a fire in a camp for displaced Palestinians in Rafah, which killed at least 45 people and injured another 200, according to the Gaza Health Ministry. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the airstrike a tragic mistake. The attack has intensified calls from world leaders for Israel to stop its military assault on the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Beneath the human suffering wrought by this war is an economic reality. And that is what we turn to this week. We'll be taking a look at the economies of Israel and the West Bank and Gaza. Israel's economy contracted 20% in the last quarter of last year, but has since rebounded. 1.7 million Palestinians, on the other hand, have slid into poverty. So we start with some context. We'll take a look at the Palestinian economy before the current war. Ibrahim Shikaki is a professor of economics at Trinity College and joins us. Professor, thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
A lot of key infrastructure in the West Bank is controlled by Israel. Water, borders, customs roads. Gaza's borders are, of course, controlled by Israel and Egypt. I know this is a very broad question, but what does or did the Palestinian economy look like in that environment?
It didn't look great. Since the occupation in 1967, one of the first military orders of the Israeli military commander were actually economic. So they decided to close off all the banks. They had very restrictive procedures on importing and exporting. Really, the Palestinian economy since 1967 has been extremely dependent on the Israeli economy. Even after the establishment of the Palestinian Authority in the early 1990s, a lot of those dependencies were still entrenched, and you just had new dependencies on international aid and then private debt.
The movement of Palestinian labor has been almost cut off into Israel. What has that meant for the two economies?
As for the West Bank, well, it has meant a lot. In the third quarter of 2023, you had roughly 150,000 Palestinians from the West Bank working in the Israeli economy. In quarter four, that went down to 17,000. So from 150,000 to 17,000. During that third quarter of 2023, the Palestinians who were working in Israel brought back roughly $1 billion of income. In the fourth quarter, that was around 79 million. So that impact on Palestinian workers, obviously this macroeconomic impact on what we call aggregate demand, is going to have a continuing level of ramifications on not just on the macroeconomic aspects, but also the livelihood and the ability of Palestinians to literally survive.
Is there an opportunity for exports to assist there? How do exports work in the Palestinian economy?
Yeah, so you have two aspects there, right? I mean, the first has to do with control over borders. And that's obviously one of the main problems that you have. Israel has complete control over any borders in the West Bank, obviously in the Gaza Strip as well. You had that part that related to Egypt, but that was also very highly coordinated with Israel. But really, the second problem has to do with whether we are producing. So what we call the productive sector, so manufacturing and agriculture that actually produce the goods that we would export, for example, those have been diminishing since really 1967. And so what you've had is the rise of specific, what I call occupation circumventing economic activities. The type of economic activity that now exists in the West Bank and before October in the Gaza Strip are basically economic activities that just entrench that dependency. There's very little that is being produced, and there's very little control over borders, which basically means that is going to be a very weak tool in terms of development in the future.
Ibrahim Shikaki is a professor of economics at Trinity College. Professor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We also talked with Professor Shikaki about the political economy in Gaza specifically. You can catch that conversation on our podcast if you miss it on the air. Plus, a look at what the war has meant for the Israeli economy. Stay tuned for that in the coming days. Our producers are Nick Perez, Ariana Rosas, Alex Schroeder, and Erica Soderstrom. Our senior producer is Meredith Gerritsen-Morby. In New York, I'm Sabri Ben-Achour with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.